All right, what's going on, guys? So there's been some news about AI in the music industry, and the one that's getting the most attention would be none other than Drake. We're going from ghostwriters to robo-writers, but this video is going to be less about the song itself and more of a thought-provoking video that I encourage you to have with other people. Maybe you share the same thoughts as me, or maybe we disagree. I just say let's have a discussion down in the comments below. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor, Nobody. So earlier this week, I was helping a friend with his car when he showed me AI generated music from artists like Kanye and Drake. Now, I thought the songs were okay. They weren't amazing, but they also weren't terrible. Then fast forward a few days ago, everyone is talking about this AI song with The Weeknd and Drake and how it slaps. Now, a friend also sent me a clip of a guy being hyped that he sounded like Kanye, but sounded nothing like Kanye, at least to me. Now, whether AI can replicate an artist perfectly is a question everyone seems to be focused on, but the question I want to pose is, are you okay listening to an AI versus an actual human? And for me, at least at the time of recording this video, no matter what the situation is, I prefer to hear an actual human, even if I can't discern whether it is an AI or a human. Now, would my opinion change in the future? Possibly. If Drake were to come out with an album and an AI Drake were to come out with an album and people preferred the AI Drake album and it got more streams than the actual Drake, I would say that speaks more volume about what we are willing to accept as a society than the product the AI can create itself. And if people are willing to accept this AI music that slaps in their car now, when these models are still in their infancy, that only, once again, speaks more volume of what we are willing to accept in the future when these models and these AI generated music gets better. And this is where I want to lead into the next question, because there are people saying that, well, this is what AI has to offer and it won't get better over time. And I would say that's a pretty hot take. And don't worry, I have a hot take myself at the end of this video. Now, going back to the point of people saying that this is the best AI has to offer and want to get better over time, are basically dismissing that technology is constantly improving, which is one of the fundamentals to the technology of AI in itself. And I would go as far to say, as people and as a human species, we're always striving to constantly improve ourselves. So we are, not, I don't want to say we're that far off at AI, but when you look at it in terms of what AI is trying to do and what humans are trying to do, it's always a constant progression of improving itself. For example, imagine the Wright brothers when they created the first airplane and someone said, this is the best airplanes are gonna get. Look at where we are now with aviation in general. I mean, we can take hundreds of people across the globe while feeding them and providing entertainment. I mean, war themselves and how they're fought were changed forever. Talk about air superiority. Imagine when the first computers were created, or dare I say the first smartphone, and someone said, this is the best computers are gonna get, or this is the best smartphones are gonna get. Look at how powerful these computers are, even in the last couple of years. There's no fan in this. I don't think people really understood that video when I talked about how amazing the M1 chip is. M1 aside, just the entire progression of computers and CPUs over the last decades has been, I would argue, a technological marvel. Even the smartphone is a computer in itself, and how powerful and capable this thing is has fundamentally changed the way we interact and live our day-to-day lives.
One is that he will have in his own house, not a computer as big as this, but at least a console to which he can talk to his friendly local computer and get all the information he needs for his everyday life, like his bank statements, his theater reservations, all the information you need in the course of living in a complex modern society. This will be in a compact form in his own house.
Phenomenal. It does error prevention and correction. Not that I won't make some, I probably will, but it's actually really fast to type on. It's faster than all these little plastic keyboards on all these smartphones. So I can just say, sounds great. And I can send that. And there it is. Right? It's that simple.
And the last example that I want to point out is when I beat Zelda Ocarina of Time as a kid. And if someone were to come up to me and say, this is the best video games have to offer, honestly, I'd probably believe them because that is still one of the greatest games of all time. And could you imagine what AI-generated Zelda music would sound like? Jokes aside, you get the idea that I'm going for. And yes, at this point in time, AI music, AI art, AI insert industry here sucks, but to say improvements won't happen is a bit of ignorance, I would say. Now, let's circle back to artist, and I mean that in the general term. And let me clear this up by saying I'm by no means an artist. You can argue that because I do video editing, content creation, make thumbnails, post videos, that I am an artist, but I'm by no means a professional artist. But for people who do think I'm an artist, thank you. But the last two questions I want to leave off on are, what can AI do to improve an artist, and can AI itself create art? The first question is probably the most important one, and how I feel AI should be tackled moving forward. And it's that AI shouldn't necessarily replace an artist or person in the industry. It should make them better at what they do. Because AI aside, why do you believe your favorite artist, or unanimously the best artist of all time, are who they are? At least for me, some artists are unique in their own way, or they push the boundaries and create things that become so influential on the industry that it changes how things are produced moving forward. I also think the final thing is that what most people have when it comes to their favorite artists is that there's something that resonates with them when you listen or experience or see them for the first time. And it's in a way kind of meshing with your own experiences and how you feel about that artist. That probably didn't make a lot of sense, but it made sense in my mind. And here's what I'm trying to say. If Drake were to come out with an album, two albums, one is regularly produced as it is in our day and age, but the other one is the same exact album, but he's using AI in different aspects, such as, cleaning up the mixing, probably making some different beats here and there, dare I say, improve some lyrical lines to make the album better, or, more bearable to listen to, so it's not the same thing over and over again. But I would argue I'd probably go over to the Drake album where he used AI to make it better. Is that because Drake's album in the last couple of years have been kind of If AI can offer something that is better, but the human is still the human product at the end of the day, that is okay. But when you take the human element out of it and just have the AI do everything all together, that's where it's like there's no real connection. There's no human behind it. It's all just generated. And there's going to be the lifelong question of, well, if it wasn't disclosed to you that it wasn't human and you thought it was a human, does that mean that the AI is doing a good job at replicating a human? But I'll touch on this at the very end. There will always be a market for people who want the flaws and imperfection of a human and would want that non-AI album. It's probably why people still buy vinyl. Actually, I don't know why people still buy vinyl. If you buy vinyl and listen to it on a record, tell me why. I'm genuinely curious. Streaming services are a thing. Just saying. Okay, the last thing that I want to touch on is the topic of AI and its lack of creativity. And I hear this argument a lot, and they say that that's all AI really is. It's just a bunch of pre-existing data in order to replicate something. It doesn't create anything new, which I would say that is true. I will not deny that statement. But this is where my hot take comes into play. And I would argue that people aren't that creative either. Can we create something unique and different from the norm? Of course. That's why we have industry disruptors or things that disrupt the social economics of how things are supposed to be. And the reason I say this is because what have we created that isn't based on previous knowledge mixed with our own experiences? Our foundation on what we are is based off of previous historical information of what we know, like the maths, the science, the literature. The creativity part is just mixing them all together with a different perspective. And there we are. We have a product. We have a new something. We have an industry disruptor. That's all creativity really is. And is that any different from an AI taking sources from different material, different industries, different ideologies? Does it take ideologies? I don't know. But it's basically sourcing stuff from different information and creating something that we've probably never seen before. Is that any different from human creativity? That's the question I'm asking. I would argue it's not that different. I mean, here's an example. Look at this laptop. This laptop, it's really just based off of all the pre-existing information that we know about computers, transistors, software, hardware, everything that we have. It all goes back to something, right? You can't just say someone thought of the laptop, right? Someone thought of a computer being mobile and created the laptop. Does that make sense? I don't think I'm making sense. Maybe this is a stupid take. If you watch an interview or see where people start their career from, they almost always mention something about inspiration. And guess what inspiration comes from? Pre-existing information or things that another person did, said, or created, and they're just taking their own spin on it and quote unquote creating something new. But you're in a way imitating or replicating it in a different way that sounds or is unique. Is that actually creative? Is that any different from what AIs do? I'm on the fence of no. Now, I'm not trying to be philosophical here because this is a tech channel first, but I'm just going to stop the conversation and the question right now because we can go on and on and on about creativity. And once again, I know it's a pretty hot take, but I'm happy to discuss it in the comments. And I'll end the video here on this statement. I don't really think the defining characteristic of a human is being creative, but it's simply being a human and being able to experience what life is like as a human being. The authenticity of being a human, I'm going to say human a lot here, is what makes us who we are. Like I said before, the imperfections, the flaws, the constant changing of who you are based on what happens to you. Being able to eat, being able to feel the warmth of the sun against your skin, being able to feel cold when you go outside when the weather's like minus 20 degrees, or just being able to breathe in fresh air. That's what it's all about being a human. That's the unique features of being human. And I think that's where AI is going to come short. It's not going to be able to imitate or replicate those human experiences. That is something that is unique to humans. Is that far-fetched? I don't know. Maybe I'll eat my words in a couple years and maybe AI can experience humans and the things that we do. But all I want to say is I hope you found this video informative. I know it's a little bit different from what I usually post, but maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I'm always happy to discuss it down in the comments below. Like I said before, a lot of people are talking about a lot of these AI technologies and tools, but I just don't want to talk about the tools themselves. I want to ask more questions about how things might potentially change in our day-to-day lives once these tools start becoming the norm, if it ever becomes that point, because it feels as though we're testing the waters and we're testing the waters and we're just trying to see how far we can go before we get a slap on the wrist from someone or something. Anyway, not trying to fearmonger here or make your day any worse, just putting some thoughts out there. Maybe you think the same thing, maybe not. Maybe you think AI is the greatest thing in the world. But I'll just leave it off by saying my outro. I appreciate every single sub, like, and comment. And as always, guys, thank you for our sponsor, Nobody. Much love. Hope this video slaps.